Hello and welcome to my quick review on the budget 320D that I bought last year. So the only reason that I bought this car was I got offered it very cheap and the V70 required some work. It had an especially bad fuel leak at the time. So I was able to purchase this car for £400 as it's a little bit tatty. It had been parked up quite a bit, and while being parked up someone had jumped on the roof, so there was a big dent in the roof. However, before I could even get any work done on the V70, 2 days after buying this car, the turbo went. And obviously I ended up leaving that for a good couple of months before I ended up sorting that out. It was really weird how the turbo went on the 3 Series. So I was driving it up a flyover and it just all of a sudden lost boost. It was boosting absolutely fine, then it just suddenly lost boost. No error codes on the dash, no other symptoms, just no boost, and it drove fine for a while thereafter, other than smoke coming out of the exhaust. And as you can see here, the shaft is considerably bent. So the turbo cost me £300, and obviously because I did the turbo, I thought, well, I might as well do a full service on it, so that was another £100. And in that time, when I originally bought the car, it had 4 months MOT, but 2 months had gone by, so we ended up with 2 months MOT left, so I decided to put it through an MOT. Fortunately, it went straight through the MOT. The only thing I purchased before the MOT were some new Bosch wipers at £23. There were a couple of advisories, but that's all it cost to get it through the MOT. So in my opinion, the E90, which is the saloon of the E9X series, is the ugliest of the lot. I only really like the E92, which is the coupe, and at a push the E91 LCI, which is the estate facelift. So if you're not familiar with the numbers for the 3 Series, we have the E90, which is the saloon, the E91, which is the estate, the E92, which is the coupe, and the E93, which is the convertible. In that sense, I did much prefer the E46, because the E46 looks the same whether you get the coupe, saloon or the estate. They're all a good looking car, but for some reason, especially the pre-LCI models, I just don't particularly like the look of the saloon. Now, something quite odd is the rear seats folding down appears to be an option on the saloon model. So this is it. Despite the fact that it looks like the seats are separate, there's no 60-40 split, and there is no way to drop the seats. This model isn't even spec'd with a ski chute. I'm not sure if that's an option. We do, however, have a CD changer, of all things. So no cruise control, but we've got a 6-disc CD changer. I did actually have to replace the battery. The battery is located under here, if you're interested. Quite awkward to remove, I will tell you that much. And a fair bit of storage underneath, because we don't have a spare wheel. So I don't know whether that means that this would have originally been spec'd with run flats. Let's have a look. Okay, nothing under there. Also, the flywheel rattles on this car quite a lot, which is really common, really common on these, and it doesn't seem to pose that much of an issue. As mentioned, someone did stamp on the roof prior to my ownership of this vehicle, but funnily enough, while driving the car on a long journey, I heard these bangs that sounded like something banging on the back window, and some of the dent actually removed itself from the roof. And I'm pretty lucky that I did get pictures before the dent removed itself, because I was actually saving for this video that where I punched the dent out of the roof, and as you can see, it is barely noticeable now that the roof had been dented. Typically, when buying a car for £400, the tyres are mismatching. The wheels, or alloys, are 16-inch, but it handles surprisingly well on even these wheels. And without being an M Sport, I am surprised. Rear-wheel drives are just inherently better to drive. They just feel so much nicer. The only thing that I will note is the power steering on the earlier models. I'm not sure if the later models changed, but it's hydraulic power steering, and it was the same on my 2006 E92. I just found that the steering is just so heavy compared to the electric power steering that my 1 Series has. So whether or not they updated the 3 Series with the electric power steering, I'm not sure, but it is something to note. It is very noticeable how heavy the power steering is. I do find with the older BMWs that the interiors age much better than the obvious comparison, which would be Mercedes. Mercedes interiors, the plastics just look so cheap after, well, in my opinion, straight away. But you look at an E-Class and the interiors just aren't as nice, or they don't age as well. I didn't have access to the obvious comparison, which would have been a C-Class, but this is the 2008 E-Class interior, and it's not so much what it looks like, it's more what it feels like, and it's sort of the shine of the plastic in person. So for some reason, exactly the same as when I had the E92, whenever I go for the window switches, I always end up getting the rear ones and not the front ones. It feels like it's a long way to the front window switches. Now, I don't know if this is down to the particular length of my arms, but it does seem odd that it would feel exactly the same in the E92, which doesn't even have rear window switches. It just feels like a reach to get to them, so I'd love to know if other people feel that way too. Something odd, which I don't know whether is a common issue, is as the car is running, this display gradually stops working. So at the beginning of the day, there is no problem with the screen whatsoever, but gradually the pixels start disappearing and eventually there's nothing left. I much prefer the later BMWs for having cup holders in this position here. On the E90s, that is the driver's cup holder, which is quite a reach from the driving position, and they aren't particularly large. The ones on the later models are much bigger and they're in this position on the dash, which is just so much better. And that's the passenger one. You do actually get another cup holder in here, and I think these can be optioned as coffee cup warmers. I'm not sure, my other one did have one. But obviously when you're driving, it's very, very difficult to get to this position here to grab a cup, and also you have to have the armrest open in order to put a cup in there, which isn't great. The door card pockets are particularly small and they don't flip out like the E92 ones do. It's nice on the E92 because it looks like it doesn't have door pockets until you flip them out. But these are pretty small and not much use. I like it when you can fit a bottle in the door pockets. So a common issue on this car has already been addressed, which is the reluctor rings on the drive shafts. Now, I do actually have a video on my channel of the replacement of these ABS rings on the drive shafts. They can be, what happens is they split, and obviously one of the gaps is too large and they bring up an ABS light on your dash. So they can actually be knocked off. BMW would replace the drive shafts completely, but you can actually knock off the old ABS ring and clean it up enough to fit a nice new one. Another common issue on the E90s is the seat occupancy sensor in the passenger seat. Now, that's why the seat belt is plugged in currently, which stops it from triggering a light on the dash. So there is actually an emulator fitted under the seat of this car, but it doesn't appear to be working. So as we drive away, as you can see, the seatbelt warning light is illuminated, and that's because the occupancy sensor in the passenger seat is defective. It is unbelievably quiet in here. You drive on the motorway and it's exactly the same as driving at 30 miles an hour. I've driven other cars. I mean, I've never owned a Vauxhall. Well, I briefly owned a Vauxhall that needed a new turbo, but I've never owned and kept a Vauxhall. But I've driven Vauxhall Moccas, Antaras, Insignias with 50,000 miles that aren't as quiet as this 3 Series on 140,000 miles nearly. Possibly the most impressive thing about the car was its ability to get over 50 miles per gallon at basically any speed. Cruising at 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, it was still capable of getting above 50 miles per gallon. So it'll easily get above 50 miles per gallon at any speed, including motorway speed. So the only thing really stopping this from being the perfect budget mile eater is the fact that it doesn't have cruise control, which is very unfortunate, and I might have been inclined to keep it had it had cruise control. So my apologies to the majority of my subscribers who I imagine are subscribed to me based on the V70 videos. I will make some different purchases in the near future. I'll try and avoid buying another BMW next. I like the way that they drive, to be honest. I prefer that Volvos are based on safety and the reliability of the P2 models, but BMWs they just drive nice, and sometimes that's what I like. I still run the V70, I still daily the V70, but the BMWs do drive nice. So I know this was quite a snappy video, but I thought it was better than nothing. I have people coming to view the car tomorrow, so it was just a last minute video. The weather's not getting much better, so I couldn't do much outside because it's absolutely freezing. I am fortunate, I've got the car listed at $12.50 and have had plenty of interest. So despite the fact that it was supposed to only be a £400 car that lasted me a few months and I sold on at the same amount of money, maybe a little profit, for some reason the 3 Series, you can't really get one that's got an MOT for less than 1,200 quid. So this one has its drawbacks, such as the condition of the paint. But even the ones that are £1,200 are 170,000 miles, and some are even cat cars. The majority that are less than 1,200 are spares or repairs. So this car was still a bargain, really. It's not as much of a bargain as it was originally, but you win some, you lose some. It could have gone much worse, and I got some cheap motoring out of it, even though I no longer required it by the time I'd fixed it. So anyway, I thought it was worth recording a quick video on the latest purchase, and I look forward to purchasing something different once the M135 is gone in probably April. So thanks for watching, and I hope you'll stick around to view some more.